Hello and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to draw and paint those flowers that you can see in the top left. I'm going to pop a little bit of background music on because I love me background music. Just have a bit of classical. I'll turn it down low and I'm going to set my camera right here so I can also film shorts with it. And away we go. Okay, cool. So we are going to start by drawing the flowers that you see in that top left corner of my screen. So I've got another picture of it right next to me here. So I'm going to start by doing a pencil sketch. And I'll start maybe about here. I can start with the centre actually. Start with the centre of the petal, the flower. These are daisies, I think. And you just got to remember to keep the flowers going in the direction. Now the petals are the same length as the centre of the flower. So it's always important to be sort of careful about proportions. Watching things that are the right lengths and right proportions for what you're doing. That petal's bent. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, but ideally you want it to be as close to as you can get. I'll pop these petals around here. Always trying to keep the top ones are the same length. The ones coming towards us are going to be a fraction shorter because they're facing us. So they are going to be, whoops, a fraction shorter. Excuse my little dog, he's trying to jump on my lap. Okay. So I'll do these ones directly at us are a fraction shorter. Like that one is actually like that. Then there's a couple underneath it. Like that. Again, that one's a little bit shorter and a bit bent. They're quite overlapping. Maybe their petals are like layered under each other. And I'm not drawing the exact amount of petals. I'm just sort of roughly gauging in what I can see. And then he's got the leaves. I'll just draw the stem for now. I'll draw the stem coming down here. Might turn that music down a fraction. Draw the stem coming down here. So I've started with the right hand flower. Then I'm going to do this little one down at the bottom here, and it's more facing upwards. So the petals are more up facing. Doesn't matter about, okay, and again, same length. Petals are the same length as the centre of the flower. That's how I get my proportions. And my music's from Epidemic Sound. It's a royalty-free music site that I like to have going on in the background. Just a bit of quiet mood music. Like that. And I'm going to do the background on this as well. I'm still trying to figure out whether I'm going to go just an all green or I'm going to add the little pink some distant flowers. I might, because it could be fun. It's a challenge. Nothing wrong with a challenge. Then these petals are sort of coming up here. This one going down there. Do that one coming down. Like that. And a couple more petals coming down here. Like that. And then the stem coming down. Off to the left. There's a little bug or something on that one. It's a bit cute. Alright. So I've done that one. And there's another flower way up high. I'm going to do I do the stem in the background? I should do the stem in the background. That's not actually connected to a flower. The flower is actually off to the right of it in the distance. But that's okay. I'm just going to draw that coming down. I've got to erase that little bit. And I'm using cold press paper today because I ran out of my hot press. The cold press is just slightly grained. This one's slightly grained. I'm going to do the little flowers in the background, because why not? But they're distant and more blurry, so they're not as detailed, which is nice. Again, centre of the flower, same length as the petals, like that. And that's behind that stem. Come back around. Come down the bottom here. It's not quite that long, but that's okay. Okay, so that's the flower directly behind. Then there is another little one just down this bottom corner. Try to keep the symmetry, but it's almost a closed one, so we're just going to do it like that. We're not going to worry about too much more than that. And we definitely need to do this one up the top here. And it's almost touching that. I'll do the centre of it. And it is touching the top of that stem. So you're just looking where things connect. It disappears off the top of the page, and it's blurry, so it's not the end of the world that there's a little like green sort of stemmy bit just there that I'll just draw in, because that flower disappears off behind it, like that. I'll draw these little petals bent up a little bit, like that. Keeps it interesting. Okay. There are a couple little flowers in the background, but I might just stick with those ones and not worry so much about the ones back off left. I've got my composition sort of in the area that I want it. Got to erase that little bit of a smudge I put on there. Oh, I've got that one. Maybe I will put this one in. It's just slightly next to it and just disappearing off the page again, but it overlaps a little bit. Doesn't have to be exact. And then there's a lot of green undergrowth, which I can paint in. So there's green petals coming down here, so I'll just draw those in. This one also has the green petals coming down there. Can't see them on the background flowers, so that's fine. There is a little petal coming off of there, like that. Okay, right, so we are going to start. I'm going to wet my watercolours. I'm actually using my Daniel Smith colours today, because I haven't used them in forever and I thought I'd better use them. And I'm going to start with my size 6 silver black velvet brush, and I'm going to start on the flowers first. So, and I'm going to go in with, I've got, it's a lolly pink, it's a very pale pink that I'm going to start with, diluted. So I'm just going to get some of that onto my palette up the top here, and I'm going to very carefully start to just fill in the petals, cutting around the centres of the flowers. And just start to fill those in. And I'll build it up layer by layer. This is a lovely bright pink. That one goes up behind that stem. See, I've got a little bit less water there. A little bit more pigment. It's quite bright, which is fun. It's always fun. I usually use lots of natural colours because I do lots of wildlife. I'm going to fill in the gaps there. So I use lots of more natural colours, earthy colours. So it's fun to use bright colours every so often. And I can add I'll leave little snippets of the white paper on parts of it, like water droplets, or just reflections even of light, like that. I won't make it completely solid. Drop a bit more pink into that one, And then come around here. Fill this one. And again, leaving little snippets of the white paper. Okay, moving on to the next flower, and I'm working high to low so I don't get my hand in the paint because I do have a tendency of putting my hand in paint. I've got to clean, I see I've got a little smudge of red pink on the page. I'm going to clean my brush and just lift that off quickly with clean water. So I just scrub my brush on that and that gets rid of that. And I am going to be doing a background, so it doesn't really matter if I get any little splotches in the background because I am going to be adding a green background, trying to add a green background anyway. We'll see how that goes. So I'm just popping some more of this pink. And I haven't got the names of the colours in front of me. I've got to find my colour chart that I've got around somewhere for this. So I'm just doing these softly into the background because you can't really see those ones. They're not very clear. Leave all the green bits and the yellow bits. You can see it's pooling at the bottom of there, so I can actually pick up a bit of that on my brush and use it on the other flower over here, like that. Again, leaving little snips of the white paper, like that. And continue on around. I do love painting daisies, they're so pretty. I did sunflowers the other day and that was fun. Down and around here. Pop that around there. Turn my music down a fraction. Okay, there we go. Come up onto that flower and use a bit of that excess water, excess paint. Because the first layer is always the lightest and you work from light to dark. Alright, work around this flower, leaving little snips of white of the paper, just because I can, because it keeps the painting interesting. You don't want it all to be solid and flat looking. You want different consistencies, different textures. Alright, coming around again, get some more bit more paint on my palette. Down and around. And it is fun to use pinks when I use lots of natural colours, so it is a lot of fun to use these pinks. And I've got a few different tones of pink here, which I'll mix up and add shadows and things as I get on in the painting a little bit. But this is quite a simple painting, it's not too much detail. It's quite a good one for beginners because it's simple shapes. Quite simple shapes. And I didn't do the one under here, but I'm not going to worry about that. I did just saw that there's another flower that I missed, but I can do that in. I can just paint that in. Just fill that in there, like that. Alright, move on to this bottom one. I'll let those dry and then I may come back to doing that other one. But we shall see. So I'll just continue on around. Take it all the way to the centre of that yellow flower. like that. Alright, down and around. You can see I've got a few different shaped petals on this one, which is fun. Keeps it nice and interesting. And again, it's not exactly like the reference. I got the reference from Unsplash, which is a royalty-free reference site. And I just literally searched flowers within the site and just went through until I found a picture that I liked. And I've got lots of daisy flowers here because I love daisies. I've got them in my garden. I might just paint a model-y one in the background. I won't even draw the picture. I'll just sort of pencil it in. I've got to just smudge that one on. Just do that like that. And there is one here. So I'm just going to quickly just put the lines, because you can only just see it anyway. Just see it in the background there. So that just helps me to have that little bit of a interest in the background. I won't worry too much about completing that one. I'll just add some little bit more petals just to suggest that there's flower there, like that. Right, now I'm going to go onto my greens. I'm going to use a sap green. I've got a sap green here, a lovely sap green, and I'm going to start with a very pale wash of the sap green. I'm also going to add a little bit of brown because this one does actually have, these stems do have a little bit of brown on them. So I'm going to go with my green and take that brown also down the length, and this one passes in front of that little daisy there and goes all the way down. I can go down to that one and then I continue that one that comes down there like that. Alright, then take that browny green down to here like that. You can't really see the stem of this one, but I'm going to paint it in because I can, because why not? Have them coming in like that. Just enough. That one sort of disappears off here, the side, like that. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to add a little bit more green into these browns. So it's just a sap green. And I'm just going to drop that in while it's still wet. Still a little bit wet. Let it flow down onto that brown. And that'll just blend itself naturally. Alright. And I'm also going to add this green to these little petals. Whoops, I got it into my pink. Doesn't matter, I'll just clean my brush and absorb that up like that. I can go over that again anyway. Doesn't matter if it mixes in a little bit. Alright, so I'm just adding a few of these little petals around, leaves around the bottom. Because they do have, actually these ones are supposed to be green. I did them pink. So you know what, I'm just going to go over it. Because these ones are supposed to be green. So I'm just going to add that in. I got ahead of myself and did them all pink. But I'm going to go and just go over them again. And turn them back to green. Like that. That solved that problem. I'll come down onto that one a bit. Now this was all like a little, the back of a flower that the bud, the petals have all fallen off. So I'm just going to draw that in like a little rough smudgy bit, like that. Okay, and now I can go into the centre of these petals with yellow. So I'm just going to go into my yellows. I've got a couple of different yellows. I've got like I think it's a Hansa yellow and a cadmium yellow. And I'm going to go in with my Hansa yellow. It's a light yellow. And I'm going to fill in the centre of these flowers. Like that. Fill in the centre of the flowers. Nice and easy. And I'm just using the same brush for all of it. Come down and around here as well. And around here. Like that. And I also add the yellow into there. So again, go dip into my Hansa yellow. It'll take a couple of layers to get the exact effect that I want. But you can see it's already looking right. Just going to pop the yellows of those ones on there. Just suggest that they're there. Now I'm going to go back to my pinks. And I'm going to add a bit more of a corally pink. I'm going to mix that in with my other pink, just to give it a bit more depth. And you can see anywhere that's a little bit darker, I'm just going to drop this slightly stronger tone in. And I'll brush that around, and it'll start to give it a bit of depth. Now I can see that these ones down, so that's pretty much all. The rest fade off into the background. This one, all the one closest to us, are quite dark. So I'll start to add, I might just darken that one up a bit more. There we go. That one's dark all the way to the end. These ones are sort of halfway down and onto the side of them. So I darken up the sides of them, which is basically just a slightly stronger tone of pink. And then they're darker into the centre. Like that. That keeps them fun and interesting. I'll darken that one right up there and that one right up there. And I'm going to go back onto the yellows with some orange as well. Make up an orange just to help. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that reddy pink that I had, using a sort of a corally pink mixed with my original pink. And I'm going to come down onto this bottom one, because you can see the bottom of that petal and the bottom of that petal, and that one is darker. Then take that around these other petals. And start to fill in anywhere that I can see stronger pinks. Like that. And I can just do it in one brush stroke up or one brush stroke down. Doesn't have to fill in the whole petal, just parts of it. Like that. Come around here. And I can even add some slightly darker tones. I'm just going to add some texture into these ones just to help. Like that. Take that around. Alright, I'm quite happy with that. This one that's off in the distance, you can see the centres of it's quite a bit darker, but the rest of it's sort of faded. So I'm just going to darken up a little bit in the centre. I'm going to go a bit closer to the stem with that one. And I've also got to go a bit in behind that green on that one. There we go. I can round off. I've got them a bit pointy, so I'm going to round off some of these petals like that. Got them a little bit pointy, so fix that up. Alright, go on to this other one over here onto the left of the screen. Darken up the petals in the middle. Again, I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that hot pink and a bit of the coral colour. Take that onto this other flower over here. The top ones are just darker to the centre, and then these bottom ones comes out to the edge more. Right, and I'm just going to take that a bit around the edges of those other ones. Right, and this is coming together. It's coming together. Okay, I'm going to go on to these bottom ones are very hazy, so I'm not even going to, I'm just going to sort of blur it out and just have them suggested in there like that. And I'm going to go back to my oranges. I'm going to make an orange out of cadmium yellow. I think it's like a cadmium yellow, and I'll use a bit of red, a bit of, I think it's magenta. Whoopsie-days. Cadmium red and magenta. Oh, sorry, magenta and cadmium yellow to make an orange. Mix up a bit more yellow in that. a bit more yellow till I get the orange I want. Alright, and I'm going to take that to the edges of these daisies. You can see they've got little dots in the centre of them. So I'll pop these little dots. I probably need a little bit more yellow even than that. So I'm just going to clean this palette above there and just add a touch more yellow just to make that a bit more cohesive. And I'm going to pop that around the edges of the centres of these daisies like that. And you can only just see the ones in the background. I'm going to go around the edge of this daisy. And these ones are very fuzzy and in the distance, so I'm not going to worry too much. I just suggest that there's a little bit of orange on them, like that. And I'm going to go back in to these stems, because you can see the stems are quite strong. And I'm going to go back in with this sort of earthy browny colour. And I'm just going to run down while the stems are still damp and let it sort of flow in a little bit, just to add a little bit more interest to the stems, like that. Come down here, and I'm just about ready. Got to do the green on that little petal there. I forgot that little petal right there. Can't forget that little petal there. So just pop that little bit of green on there, and also let that run down the stem a little bit. There we go. Okay, I am now going to let that dry a little bit, and I'm going to add some darker greens. I'm going to go deep sap. Got a deep sap green here because I need to vary up the greens on this one here, because it's not one flat green, it's all different greens. Same on these bottom petals. I just come in there and make them quite dark, because they are quite dark in the reference. So just come in and darken those up, and darken these ones up. Not completely, but subtly. While that's still wet, drop that in. Alright, those ones in the background you can barely see. Right, so I am now the background is green. And I'm going to go, I think I'm going to try, we'll have a look at what this Cascade green looks like. Yeah, I might go this Cascade green, because that's quite pretty. And it's soft. And I want a soft green. So I'm going to start by wetting the background. Got my brush reasonably clean. Start by wetting the background. And it's got a little bit of that green tint in it, and it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to wet all around this top quarter of these flowers, like this. Wet all around this top quarter, and then blend it down come around here like that. Got to leave that little pink flower there. Okay, now I'm going to drop my Cascade green in and just let it flow. Let it flow around, and it will only flow where I've put the water. It won't go anywhere else. So that's just where I've put the water. And I can pick up any excess. Like you see those little bubbles at the bottom. I just clean my brush, take the moisture out of it, and pick that up. Like that. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing in the middle of these two flowers. It's still a little bit damp, but it doesn't matter. Oops. And I'm going to drop that Cascade green in, because they are blurry up in the background. Drop that Cascade green in. Like that. Oops, I've got a bit on my pink. Doesn't matter. I can just clean my brush, take the moisture out of it, pick that up. There we go. I'm going to pop that into there as well because there's a bit of a gap there. Like that. Alright, now I'm going to move across to the left hand side and I'm going to wet the paper, and you can see that's still a little bit wet, but I'll stay away from that petal there, or that base of that other flower, and I'm just going to cut around these here like that, and then go for my Cascade Green again. Quite diluted. I will add a little bit more in to help strengthen just bits around the flowers because you want your darkest darks against your lightest lights. So I'll add a little bit more of this with slightly less water and more pigment at the end. Okay, just cutting gently around these petals. Alright, again I'm going to work down into this part, cutting around the pink and the green and just putting the water onto the paper so that anywhere that I drop that pigment it'll flow. Come right to the bottom of the page like that, all the way to the bottom because it is quite blurry on the picture. Whoops. Cascade Green. Get a bit of water in there and drop it in and let it flow. And you can see that flows everywhere I've put the water, it'll flow. And I don't have to worry about it going onto the flowers because I haven't touched the flowers. I can pick up any bits that look like they're getting beady and thick and just pick those up. Come in and around and drag that to the bottom of the page. I'll wet around here and drop that in. It's just a suggestion that there's flowers and grass and stems and things. I can just add diluted mix of that in, just to bits that I've got to cut around that I can't do a big wash on. I've just got to carefully cut in and around, and that meets there. So then I'll just drop the pigment in. I can drag it around a little bit anywhere that I see that it needs to go, like that. Okay, I'll come down between these ones and I'll drag the brush all the way around. I can actually do this whole bottom quarter, I reckon. I can do this whole bottom left hand quarter, just wetting the paper carefully. I clean my brush and then I wash it round. And I've always got my clean water next to me. That's bleeding into the paper a little bit, doesn't matter. I'm just going to drop that in there and let that flow. And you see that flows everywhere that I've put the brush, put the water, let it flow down. Oh, I got a bit too much there. Just pick that up with the tip of my brush. Then drag it round into all those little crevices and bits that I've missed, like that. Take it down and around and down the bottom of the page. And let's get this all filled in. And because that's green there, it doesn't even matter that it mixed a little bit on the paper. Not the end of the world. So then we come down and around, down to the ground, like that. Right. Okay, now I'm going to take the excess moisture off my brush and just pick up anywhere that I can see puddles. They're called beads, but anywhere I can see these beads on the page, I'm going to run around and pick them up with a dry, clean brush. And I can drag little bits of pigment in closer to the edges of these, like that. But sometimes it's a bit of fun to just have little gaps. Now I'm going to go a little bit stronger because you can see there's darker greens down the bottom, and while the paper's still wet it'll flow around, and I want that to happen. I want it to have a bit of life to it, flow around, because it's not just one flat green in the background. And this is just a fun little sketch, just a fast little sketch to show you how easy it is. So yeah, while it's all still damp, I'm going to run in and add a little bit. This is the same green, just less water, more pigment. I won't fill in the whole background, I'll just leave gaps so that gives you the effect or the illusion of grasses and darker bits. Like that. I might even take, there's some up in this top right hand corner. Whoops, I need to get a bit more. Need to get a bit more on my page. Up here, and I'll add just some brush strokes that look like they could be stems of trees or bushes or whatever. Just for fun, just cause. The same on this side. And take that down. I can pop that into there too. Just to keep it interesting. You see there's a bit of darker green around this little flower. Like that. I might actually add, I've got to add a bit more yellow and a bit down into this corner. Just do that just because I can. Having a quick look at the big screen because that gives me a better perspective of what's going on the page. Alright, I'm going to let that dry a little bit, have a sip of my coffee. And I'm having a look at the picture up the top and seeing what I can do. It's just a very loose watercolour sketch. And I'm going to add, I think I'm going to go in with a little bit of magenta. I'm going to dilute it right down. Mix it with a little bit of the pink. And I'm going to go into the centre of these petals and just do little lines. Actually, I might even just use the pink. Just less pigment, less water, more pigment, I mean. Go into the centre of these because you can see that they are quite pretty with their little lines and bits of detail on them. I'll just stay off where I put the fresh green. Stay off that. Because you can see that dries back quite pale. I've got to be, and that's there. I've got just going to touch that with my bit of clean kitchen towel because I've got a bit too much moisture right there. So I'll just lift that off like that. Come into there. Just drawing little bits more pink coming up the centre of these petals. Just to fill them in, give them a bit more, because it does dry back quite pale. And I want to give them a bit more depth, not looking so flat. I can go, as long as I stay in the centre of the petals, I won't touch that green, and I shouldn't have any mixing problems with it. Come down here onto these ones. Just having a quick look. It's not a photograph, it's an impression of the painting, of the photograph. Okay, now same thing, I'm going to go onto these other ones, work my way around. I'm going to come up, take that all the way to the inside like that, staying away from that wet green, just coming up the inside of the petals and connecting to the yellow in the middle like that. And just deepening up the centres like that. And this one, I can see I've smudged it a little bit, so I'm just going to drop in a little bit more pink around there and fill in where I've messed it up a little bit. Come around here. and florals aren't my forte. I'm having fun trying them, but I'm an animal artist predominantly, so I thought I'd like to try something different every so often and branch out, and only get better by practicing things you're not necessarily that great at. So I thought it's fun to practice flowers for me. Alright, I'm now going to go back into my yellows, my pure yellows. I'm not going to mix them with anything, and I'm just going to put the dots in the centre of these flowers, because they do have lots of little dots. I'll just suggest those ones in the background. Like that. Alright, again onto these ones. I'm letting that background dry. I'm going to go in with a little bit more of this deep red, just into the centre. This lovely deep red, just right into the middle where it adjoins. And it doesn't matter if it mixes with the yellow, because that'll just turn orange. Like that. That's better. That's making it pop a bit more. That's what it needed. A little bit of a gutsy red closer to the centre, just to give that a little bit of depth, a little bit of shadow. Not just all solid pinks. Alright, come back around the edge of the yellow like that. And I can also take the underside of some of these. I'm going to do it onto here too. And I'm just sort of flicking that around the edges like that. Just sort of flicking it. Can't really see it on that one, but I'm going to add it on that one because I've done it on the others. Like that. And I'm just going to use that same darker red in the very... Oops, I need to get a bit more moisture on it. Just into the shadow areas on some of these. Not all of them, just some of them. If you do it on all of them, it'll look flat again, and I don't want it to look flat. So just any that are in shadow. Then that brings that part of the flower forward and pushes the pale parts to the back. Like that. Alright. You can only sort of see bits of that one. These ones down here I can just suggest little flecks of dark, because you can't really see those ones. Like that. I can see a couple of shadows coming around on this petal. And I'm going to add more shadows on these centre ones, because that'll draw your attention to the centre of the picture. More to these middle ones will draw your eye, hopefully. Like that. And I can even go slightly darker green. I'm going to go back to my greens and add some detail to... I'm going to strengthen these petals a little bit. Now the background's dry. I'm going to strengthen these petals and take the shadows down the branch like that, and shadow this branch, and this one comes right down the centre of that daisy, and then down behind like that. And there we go. That is a fun, simple watercolour daisy painting. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was lots of fun to do, and it shows you how simple it can be. I'm just going to sign it down this bottom right hand corner, just down here where it's dry. The paint's already dry. I'm just going to put my signature down here with the tip of my pen, my brush I mean, like that. And we are done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day, and I will see you next time.